Welcome to our not-for-profit organization best practices series. I'm your host for this session, Chris Griffin, a partner in CohnReznick's not-for-profit and education industry practice. And with me in this session, I have Bhavesh Vadhani, a principal with CohnReznick's advisory group specializing in cybersecurity, risk, and technology matters. Bhavesh, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. How are you?
Great. Thanks again for being with us in this session. So Bhavesh, right now in the news, there's a lot of talk about, as always, various cybersecurity incidents. One that comes top of mind is the recent incident with Blackbaud. But you combine that with organizations shifting to a remote work environment, mostly in response to the pandemic. And cybersecurity certainly is something that should be top of mind. So what we wanted to talk about in this session is just, there are 2 or 3 things that organizations should be thinking about when it comes to cybersecurity risk management, and just want to get your thoughts on what are some of those things.
Yeah, Chris, it is a timely topic, and we are seeing an increase in cybersecurity incidents, some leading to data breaches, some not. However, organizations need to take cybersecurity risk management and cybersecurity threats very seriously, especially in today's day and age, with everybody forced to work remotely, adapting to the new norms with the pandemic and everything going on. I think it goes back to the basics, Chris. Organizations need to go back to the basics to understand what are they doing, how are they doing it, and how well can they protect their assets, right? So if you ask me a couple of things that matter the most, I would go back to the basics of saying have adequate authentication and authorization controls. Make sure your password parameters are enforced. Make sure you have access based on least privilege or need to know basis, that only authorized people have access to information. You need to make sure that you have, as an organization, you're doing basic blocking and tackling with patching your IT assets with the critical patches as they come out. Making sure that you do that on a regular basis with some kind of cadence. Enforcing VPN and multi-factor authentication, the use of multi-factor authentication throughout your organization to access any and all of your assets. Making sure that you have, updated, refreshed security toolset to help your organization detect and prevent threats. And having security incident response plan, an updated security incident response plan, so that you know what you're going to do in the event you encounter a security incident. Those are things that I would start with. Okay,
so let's cover VPNs, multi-factor authentication, and security incident response plans. So when it comes to VPNs, Bhavesh, why is that so critical that organizations have their arms around securing the VPNs?
Yeah, Chris, as you know, VPNs, which is also called virtual private networks, it's one way for organizations to provide access remotely to their environment, where people, if they're working remotely, they need access to the IT assets. That's one of the more secure ways to do it. It's important to secure your own VPN and the assets on which this VPN application or as an appliance is within your network is, because if the VPN is breached or compromised, then essentially you're allowing anybody a free rein into your IT environment from an access perspective. So it's very important that organizations pay attention to this. They make sure that their servers that have the VPN software or the VPN appliance itself, if it's an appliance-based virtual private network, that those are secure, they are maintained, they're patched, and they're regularly updated for critical security updates and fixes.
Right. Yeah. You read all the time about breaches happening in VPNs, and often a lot of roads lead back to not patching, not updating those VPN environments. So multi-factor authentication, Bhavesh. I think when people hear that, they think of cumbersome activities they have to go through in terms of hunting down some special code or having to put some dongle into the computer. But I think today that process is a lot less friction. So could you maybe talk about how that process has gotten a lot more efficient and less friction for organizations when it comes to multi-factor authentication?
Sure, Chris. I mean, multi-factor authentication these days is becoming a lot more easier and simpler overall as a process. I remember, 7, 8, even 10 years back when multi-factor authentication as a concept first came out, dual factor authentication it was referred as dual factor authentication back then. And, we all used to carry a hardware token, the RSA token, and that would refresh every 60 seconds or what have you. Carrying that token. If you lose that token, there are other issues with just the physical security of those tokens. Nowadays, multi-factor authentication is much simpler. You have software tokens, you have one-time passwords that are generated, and it's much easier for organizations to integrate those kind of technologies in their IT environment, and it's much easier for users to adapt them and use them to a point where it's even made easy from a software or a appliance or a technology perspective. The multi-factor authentication becomes so easy that it can be a push, pull, verify, and a code verification, right? So the technology has evolved. The ease of use is more prominent now, and users are used to it. So it's not that big of a deal in today's day and age for users to authenticate using multi-factor authentication. They do it for their personal lives when it comes to banking or any financial institution. They all get a one-time code, and they have to enter the one-time code to access that and their information. So,
right. And I know for the tool that we use, Dual Mobile, I get a push to my smartwatch. I tap my smartwatch, the one-time code's right there, and I enter it in 2 seconds, and really no real friction for the peace of mind that I'm doing what I can to protect my client's information. So last one, Bhavesh, security incident response plan. Going again back to the Blackbaud breach, and this isn't about singling out Blackbaud. Hosted solutions and providers, they're all being attacked and threatened. So not about Blackbaud as much as, it's going to happen to organizations. You rely on outsourced service providers, cloud service providers. There's going to be a breach. And so it's just really more about having a response plan once the breach happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, Chris, I tell this to all my clients, and I think you and I have spoken about this multiple times. It's not a matter of if somebody is breached or an organization is breached, it's when, right? There are organizations in today's day and age, there's a famous say there are two types of organizations. One that they know that they've been breached, and the others that have been breached, but they don't know that they've been breached. In both cases, if you look at it, I mean, the common is that they have been breached. So when you are breached as an organization, what do you need to do? You need to effectively respond to that breach, which is why you need a very adequate and a strong, robust security incident response plan. We find many clients having a security incident response plan, but the plan is not updated and it does not reflect their current processes or their current environment. And hence it's outdated, which essentially cannot be relied upon. What organizations need to do today is to make sure that they keep updating their incident response plan. And one way to do it is to make sure that you are having tabletop exercises on a regular basis, simulating incidents, and getting the lessons learned from those incidents, tabletop exercises that you've done, and updating your security incident response plan. Because technically, when you go through the tabletop exercises, you are invoking the security incident response plan. You're leveraging that plan to go step by step to see if you follow those processes and procedures outlined in the plan, are you able to contain the incident? Are you able to handle the incident? And are you able to recover from the incident? So any updates that you need to make need to come from all those lessons learned or any environmental changes that may have happened in your IT infrastructure that should be reflected in the security incident response plan.
Great. Thanks, Bhavesh. So just to recap, patch, update those VPNs, apply multi-factor authentication. It's not as cumbersome as you think it might be, and create, update, and test a security incident response plan. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. That is a fair summary, Chris.
Thanks so much, Bhavesh, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Chris. Looking forward to many more. Thanks for the time today again.
Sure thing.